It's the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. For 3,800 years, it was the tallest structure on Earth. It contains 2.3 million limestone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. It covers 13 acres. It's so perfectly aligned to true north that modern compasses are off by more degrees than the pyramid. Engineers today still can't fully explain how it was built with Bronze Age technology. It has survived earthquakes, wars, and millennia of stone robbers. And yet, we know almost nothing about the man who built it. His name was Khufu, the second pharaoh of Egypt's 4th dynasty, and around 2570 BC, he embarked on the most ambitious construction project in human history. He ordered the construction of what we now call the Great Pyramid of Giza. It would take 20 years, employ 100,000 workers, and consume the resources of the entire Egyptian kingdom. When completed, it stood 481 feet tall, taller than a 40-story modern building. It would remain the world's tallest man-made structure until the Lincoln Cathedral was built in England in 1311 AD. That's 3,800 years of holding the record. But here's the irony. Despite building the most famous monument on Earth, Khufu himself is almost completely unknown. Only one statue of him has ever been found, and it's 3 inches tall. His mummy has never been discovered. Ancient historians described him as a tyrant. Modern Egyptologists paint a different picture. This is the story of Khufu, the mysterious pharaoh who built forever. Khufu was born around 2600 BC, the son of Pharaoh Sneferu and Queen Hetepheres. His father Sneferu was already a prolific builder who had constructed 3 pyramids during his reign, including the famous Bent Pyramid and Red Pyramid at Dashur. So Khufu literally grew up watching massive construction projects. When he inherited the throne around 2589 BC, Egypt was at the height of its power during what's called the Old Kingdom period. The economy was strong. The Nile flooded predictably, providing abundant harvests. Egypt controlled Nubia to the south with its gold mines and the Sinai Peninsula with its copper and turquoise. The government bureaucracy was efficient. The priesthood was powerful. And Khufu had absolute authority as a living god. He was considered the earthly incarnation of the god Horus and the son of Ra, the sun god. His word was literally divine law. Within the first few years of his reign, Khufu made a decision that would define his entire legacy. He would build a pyramid larger than any before, a monument so massive it would declare Egypt's power to the entire world and ensure his own immortality. He chose a site on the Giza Plateau, a rocky outcrop overlooking the Nile Valley near the capital city of Memphis. The location was perfect, elevated, with a solid limestone bedrock foundation and visible for miles. He assembled the greatest architects, engineers, and mathematicians in Egypt. The chief architect was probably a man named Hemiu, Khufu's cousin and vizier, though evidence is limited. Together, they designed something that had never been attempted before, a true pyramid with smooth sides rising to a point, standing nearly 500. The construction of the Great Pyramid is one of history's greatest engineering mysteries. Here are the facts. The pyramid contains approximately 2.3 million limestone blocks. The average block weighs 2.5 tons, but some of the granite blocks in the King's Chamber weigh up to 80 tons. The base covers 13 acres and is almost perfectly square, with each side measuring about 756 feet. The 4 sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with incredible precision, off by only 3/60ths of a single degree. The ancient Egyptians didn't have iron tools. They didn't have wheels for heavy transport. They didn't have pulleys as we know them. And they definitely didn't have modern machinery. So how did they do it? The most widely accepted theory involves a massive workforce, probably around 20,000 to 30,000 skilled workers employed year-round, with an additional 70,000 to 80,000 farmers working during the flood season when agricultural work was impossible. Contrary to popular belief, these weren't slaves. Archaeological evidence from workers' villages near Giza shows they were paid laborers who received food rations including bread, beer, meat, and fish. The limestone blocks were quarried locally from the Giza Plateau itself. Workers used copper tools and wooden wedges. They would cut channels around a block, insert wooden wedges, soak the wedges with water, and the expanding wood would crack the stone free. The blocks were then moved using wooden sledges pulled across sand that was deliberately wetted to reduce friction. Recent experiments have shown that wetting the sand reduces the pulling force needed by 50%. For the internal granite blocks, which came from quarries at Aswan 500 miles south, they used the Nile River to float massive barges during the flood season. The biggest mystery is how they lifted the blocks. The pyramid rises to a height of 481 feet. Moving 2-ton blocks up that high with Bronze Age technology seems impossible. The most accepted theory involves ramps. But what kind of ramps? A single straight ramp would need to be over a mile long to achieve the correct angle, which seems impractical. Most Egyptologists now believe they used a combination of methods: a main external ramp spiraling around the pyramid, internal ramps inside the structure itself, and possibly levers and counterweights for the final placement. A recent theory suggests they might have used an internal spiral ramp that was incorporated into the pyramid itself, which would explain why no trace of external ramps remains. The workers lived in a city built specifically for the pyramid project. Archaeologists have excavated these workers' villages and found bakeries capable of producing thousands of loaves daily, copper workshops, medical facilities where workers received treatment for injuries, and even evidence of complex surgery. The workers weren't miserable slaves dying by the thousands, as Hollywood depicts. They were skilled craftsmen who took pride in their work. Graffiti found inside the pyramid shows workers organized into teams with names like Friends of Khufu and Drunkards of Menkaure, suggesting team competition and pride. Recent discoveries of papyrus fragments, including the diary of Mirror, an inspector involved in the project, provide incredible details. Mirror describes transporting limestone blocks from Tura quarries by boat, the organization of work crews, and the logistics of feeding thousands of workers. These are the oldest papyrus documents ever found and provide our only first-hand account of pyramid construction. Continuous construction. Around 2560 BC, the Great Pyramid was finally completed. The entire structure was originally covered in polished white limestone casing stones that reflected the sun's light, making the pyramid shine like a jewel visible for miles. The tip was capped with a pyramid ion, possibly covered in gold or electrum, though this capstone has never been found. Khufu ruled for approximately 23 years total and died around 2566 BC. He was probably in his 60s. And here's where the story becomes frustrating and mysterious. We don't know what happened to his body. The king's chamber inside the pyramid contains an empty granite sarcophagus. Was Khufu ever actually buried there? Ancient robbers broke into the pyramid in antiquity, probably during the first intermediate period around 2160 BC, about 400 years after Khufu's death. They smashed through the granite plugs blocking the passages and ransacked the burial chamber. If Khufu's mummy was there, it was destroyed or stolen. Some Egyptologists speculate there might be hidden chambers we haven't discovered yet, possibly containing Khufu's actual burial. In 2017, scientists using cosmic ray muon imaging discovered a mysterious void above the Grand Gallery, about 100 feet long. What's in there? Is it structural space or an undiscovered chamber? As of now, we don't know. What we do know is that only one statue of Khufu has ever been found, a tiny ivory figurine 3 inches tall, discovered in Abydos, hundreds of miles from Giza. For the builder of the world's largest monument, this seems impossible. Were his statues destroyed? Are they still buried somewhere? The mystery deepens. For 1,500 years after Khufu's death, his pyramids still stand while the civilizations that came after have all crumbled. The Roman Empire rose and fell. The Byzantine Empire vanished. The Islamic caliphates transformed the world. European kingdoms appeared and disappeared. And through it all, Khufu's pyramid endured. It survived earthquakes that destroyed Cairo multiple times. It survived stone robbers who stripped away the outer casing to build medieval Cairo. It survived Napoleon's invasion and the archaeological plundering of the 19th century. Today, It's the only survivor of the seven wonders of the ancient world. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, writing 2,000 years after Khufu, described him as a tyrant who closed the temples and forced the entire population into slavery to build his monument. But modern archaeology tells a different story. The pyramid was a national project that employed thousands, developed advanced engineering techniques, and demonstrated Egypt's power to the world. Khufu created something that has literally outlasted human memory. His name, Khufu in Egyptian or Cheops in Greek, is known worldwide because of his pyramid. He achieved exactly what pharaohs dreamed of: eternal life through eternal fame. We may never find his mummy. We may never understand exactly how his workers built such an incredible structure with such primitive technology. But we can stand before the Great Pyramid and know that Khufu succeeded. He built forever. And 4.5 millennia later, we still look up in awe.